This is Honky Tonk Man, the greatest intercontinental champion of all time.
Hey everybody, this is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and you are listening to...
And you're listening to The Wrestler Review.
Welcome to The Wrestler Review. Ladies and gentlemen, it is hot in August, all right? It is so fucking hot. Oh, yeah, fuck me, because we're
terrible at improv.
Roddy
Piper. Get ready to put on blackface on half your body, ladies and gentlemen.
Whoa. The entire month of August will be dedicated to
Hot Rod.
Roddy Piper, Roddy Tombs. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be quite the adventure.
Why are we doing Roddy Piper? Because we are in Edinburgh, Scotland, doing the Fringe, Dylan.
Yeah.
So while we're doing that, you'll be hearing all of these episodes dealing with a man who, I'm going to say it, did the most cocaine of any wrestler in the 1980s.
Any casual anecdote
Yeah.
just has Roddy Piper. A lot of people think...
Every single one of his anecdotes, when he tells it, by the way, he doesn't say that I punched a guy. He always goes, and then a guy fell down.
I love that. I love all the stories about how Roddy Piper ruined his body. It's just like... Because they say your body starts falling apart basically at 30, and Roddy Piper puts that into practice that, if you get in a car crash every 3 months, then yes, your body starts falling apart at 30. If you could also just have a couple teas and maybe stay in a night or two.
From all appearances, a man who was very ripped but never seemed to go to a gym.
Yeah. That was a lot of the stuff I've read about him is the anecdotes end with him passed out. And have you ever heard the first time the Big Show met him?
No.
I'm skipping ahead to like the 3rd episode, but the first time the Big Show met
teasing
him,
it.
He rode in, essentially. He goes to this hotel where they're supposed to be staying for WCW, and then the lady notices he's huge. Mm-hmm. He's the giant at the time. And he comes in, and he's like, okay, well, and the lady goes, oh, well, you're huge, so like we have a suite for you if you need a bigger bed. You need a bigger bed. And he goes, oh, thank you so much, man. So he goes up to his suite, and then he sees like there's just 4 empty bottles of NyQuil, and he's like, what the fuck? Roddy Piper is like naked on the bed with his ass up.
Just in the room.
Literally sleeping in the please fuck me position. And then apparently for the rest of his life, Roddy Piper was like, you could have fucked me. You could have fucked me. And like, because he was like so used to ribbing or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, Roddy Piper's life is this.
Born.
Constantly.
No, wait, let me do it. Born. Meets father.
Yeah.
Father. Beats him up.
Father. Stir no.
Yeah.
Just looks at him and goes, no.
If I could define Roddy Piper's relationship with his family, it is the phrase, absolutely never going to happen.
Yeah, because his dad... Well, basically, if you want to go through Roddy Piper's life, he was born in Saskatchewan. And the weird thing is,
to an RCMP officer in...
Yes.
The time before the 90s when they absolutely went in and like re-socialized the RCMP in those areas, because they were like, oh, we've just let madmen with guns police an area of the country that we have no way of watching.
Yeah.
What do you mean you have a room full of skulls? What do you mean all the criminals work for you? What do you mean you just held a gun to a kid's face?
Basically, Roddy Piper's childhood can best be summed up with, if you just Google bully beats up nerd, until 15.
Yeah.
He just essentially got beat up in rural Canada. And then there's a lot of stories about him, how he like hung out with native kids, and that's why he got beat up. And then he got beat up by the native kids because he was white.
And also there's one of the things is his family basically disowned him because he got found to be cavorting with a native woman. Now, to sort of understand Canada is that everyone talks about how Australia is really racist and terrible towards their Aboriginal people. At least Australia has apologized and done things like acknowledged that it happened. While in Canada, this is what it is. Okay, you be a native person, I will be the Canadian government.
I could
shut up.
Didn't happen.
No.
Get in our school. Wear the headdress. We don't wear headdresses. Now you do.
Yeah. Hey, how are you? I don't care. You're going to go with these Catholic church ministers. Why are they in rural Canada? Oh, it's where they're hiding the pedophiles. They're going to fuck you.
I don't know if this happened explicitly, but the relationship Canada had with its native people is, I don't know, watch a SmackDown where John Cena beats up Tatanka. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, they're coming back. No, they are not. And he's telling him to suck his dick.
Yeah, it's basically, think of how most wrestlers treat the legacy of Chief Jay Strongbow.
Yeah.
Disrespectful, and mostly just tell you that it's because he's Jewish. That's why.
Jesus fucking Christ. Well, that's the fun thing about Roddy Piper is he essentially, we'll gloss over his childhood, but it was bad. It was
Real bad.
Yeah, and it really colors the rest of his life. If you read anything on the guy, because anytime anyone is like touches his ass, he beats the fucking shit out of
Or
him.
it's anything like, it's amazing, and this is really glossing over, but as he sort of crystallizes his worldview and also his approach to wrestling, you see why he was able to do things like be the first big heel for Hulk Hogan, even though he was so much smaller than him.
Yeah.
Because he has an energy and an ability to make the entire world fucking hate his guts, but in a way where you're like, I respect that he just beat up a woman named Cyndi Lauper. Like, there's something about...
Yeah, well, he also is, he's really early on. Like, basically, the earliest Piper promo, and I think it's why people will say that CM Punk is a lot like Roddy Piper, and I think it's really, really apt because CM Punk, you can watch his work rate and be like, oh, this guy is good, but he's not great. He's just good. But his promos are amazing. And Piper's the exact same way, where it's like you watch, like I've watched matches that were hailed as classics with him, and I'm like, yeah, I mean that's okay.
The thing with
But for the time, I assume it was amazing.
But it's also the thing with Roddy is Roddy's amazing ability is he talked them in the building. Like,
Yes.
If you watch the build-up of things that he was doing in the NWA, things he was doing in Florida, he would make them do different things. So he would come in, I think it was the Florida territory, where for 3 months he just pretended to be a color commentator.
Yes.
And then slowly was just fucking picking on everyone. Then someone snapped, and then he just fucking started beating the shit out of people. And it's that way of it just, he builds up a rapport with the audience, so they're like, that's my guy. And then anything he does in the ring, you're like, oh, my guy did something, even though it's not that great of a work rate. I think it was Florida. They also used it in Carolina to get him into a program with Ric Flair.
Yeah. And
the other thing to also remember, if we're going back, is Roddy is one of those guys that bridges old school and new school in the way that Flair is the big bridge between territory days and corporate wrestling that we're in now. Well, Roddy is the last guy who was like carnival folk arena wrestling. Because he started as, he was a piper in a carnival.
Yeah.
And then they were like, Larry the Axe Hennig needs to beat up a twink. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, he really starts, and it's kind of a weird thing where he starts out wrestling in Canada.
Although, I gotta go into Canada. Yeah, okay.
But it's like he moves from, and this is explicit, and I apologize, he grew up in a religious upbringing in the 50s.
Yeah.
So,
Believe in God, yeah.
oh, they're gonna touch my dick.
Yeah.
And then he goes into professional wrestling in the 70s, which is, oh, it's just a rib. You woke up and I'm fucking ya.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I pwned Larry the Axe Hennig and I'm possibly Kurt Hennig's mom, but that's not that's only one thing you gotta know about me.
But it's just like, yeah, you watch the guy's promo, and he so clearly had a horrible child. Like, he has the personality of someone that was adopted.
Yeah, and he
just
also
left on a curb.
and you
like,
could also see
raise yourself. Here's a knife.
yeah, but not the handle, just the blade. You don't deserve handles.
Well, and the other thing is, he starts regularly carrying a knife pretty much immediately into his wrestling career.
But again, this is the time in territory wrestling where it was, you were going into these smaller markets where people believed it was real.
Yeah.
And they would try and kill you.
Yes. Well, because his first major... All right, so he starts out...
He's in Oregon. He goes to Oregon. And the thing is he also has that very much sign of someone with abuse, which is if you show anything remotely close to politeness to him, then he's like, oh, this guy's the greatest guy ever. I will never... Like, like supposedly he would not work WWF shows in the Oregon area Like,
Yeah, 'cause of
until he died.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I know Don Owens was good to me. I'm going to be good to Don Owens. Okay.
Exactly, right? But that's the other thing is he basically gets... So he starts out doing just like weird runs in Canada, mostly as a jobber because, as you'll see...
He's like, by the way, it's not like he's 21 and been through OVW. He's a fucking 15-year-old who was in a pipe band.
Yeah.
Who wasn't told it was fake right away. Like, it was... I don't know if it was the first match.
Larry Henning just really beat up a child.
Larry Henning just attacked a man.
Yeah, he just committed some child abuse, and they were like, here's $20 for your punches to the face, sir.
Here's the thing that I always sort of wonder. How the fuck are Harley Race and fucking Larry the Axe Henning still alive, and yet everyone else is dead?
Because they drank scotch.
Like, have you watched a recent interview with Harley Race?
Well, Harley was an old man.
He has dementia, and no one is acknowledging it. Like, he clearly has dementia.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, for sure. But the other thing is, this is, like, Larry the Axe Henning, here's all his matches. Every Larry the Axe Henning, waist lock, forearm shiver, what's your finishing move? Well, it's a trip. I'm not taking it. I'm not taking it because it don't fall down. That's my gimmick. My gimmick is I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm the axe. Why? Because I'm difficult to wield and traditionally only used by drunk men.
Well, that's the other thing with Piper, where it's like, if Roddy Piper was around now, he would have been like, I don't know, CM Punk, AJ Styles, or he would have been like, oh, everyone's really mad at me. I fell directly on the top of my head. My neck's broken. Oh, let's just take some go-away pills until this is a problem.
He would be the equivalent of Brian Pillman, Sandman. Hear me out. In that they're guys, he's the sort of classic example of you don't need to put a title on him. You don't even need him to get in the ring.
Yeah.
You just need him to show up and say or do something. No one remembers the match at WrestleMania 6 between him and Bad News Brown. Everyone remembers the fact that he was in blackface and danced around. The reason why, by the way, took me a little bit of digging, he was trying to make fun of Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah, no, because he tried, this is the fun part. Well, no, we're not getting to that.
Okay, well, let's talk. So he's going through, and he's going into the territories, basically.
Yeah, he was trained by, the other thing is he's trained by Gene LaBelle, and the reason why Gene LaBelle is kind of sticking to him.
Judo Gene LaBelle?
The reason why...
A man who does not look like he would not consider martial arts a thing, because like, I don't do art.
Well, so there's a weird link there, but he's trained by Judo Gene LaBelle essentially because... he's a small kid. So he's a small kid, and he's 18, and he's still one of the top stars in the company. Everyone resents that because at this time, you're pretty much not the top star in a territory until you're like 36 and up.
But the thing is, it actually shows some hindsight in Don Owen in that it's the smart thing of, you put the kid on top. That's an inspirational story for all the people watching at home.
Oh, no, I'm talking about like California.
Oh, this is when he gets to LA.
Because the LA thing is hilarious.
Yes, okay, sorry.
Because the LA thing, and there's so much kind of like weird
by the
pander.
Way, reading...
He may or may not have been friends with Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, but also reading the Roddy Piper book, you also understand why Ric Flair is who he is that like, in this time period, it's like, you just don't have a home. You're like, I'm going to go be in this place for a bit.
Yeah, he lived in the motel from White Man Can't Jump for like years.
Yeah.
The Flamingo
Hotel.
Yeah, where it's just like he would just be like, sometimes he would sleep in his car just so it was like a diversion. So if you rob his house, he can see who fucking did it.
Let me tell you, okay, all right, I'll find you, you crip something. You want to talk about blood? We're going to get some blood.
Well, it just colors the 90s because it's like his kids in the 90s are essentially like, Dad, this isn't the 70s anymore. It's like, well, how do you guys go to the grocery store without 4 fucking knives?
Oh, Dad, can you drive us to school? No. If you want to learn how to read, you do it like I did in prison to try and figure out what the form you were signing. But also,
he's put in prison.
And also, you also have to understand something as someone who's been to LA. LA is the weirdest town in that sort of behavior of like, oh, I sleep in my car so I can catch a burglar. It's like, yep, you would.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because the weather is too nice.
Yeah.
So any sort of behavior is suddenly just acceptable because it's a nice day.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of people wandering. Like, Canada has this good control where it's like no one gets too comfortable outside.
Yeah.
Because
Winter's coming.
Yeah, winter's constantly coming. But when I was cut off there for a bit, but I just want to mention he was put in prison basically because he was so young dealing weed that he didn't understand that ratting people out to the cops was even a bad thing.
The best. Yeah, he goes to a diner. Oh, it's so great. That was just Toronto, too.
Yeah, he was like, oh, no, I told the cops they were weed dealers because I'm a weed dealer, and then I can deal more weed that way. Like, he was like, he didn't understand, and everyone's like, but then you're in the community. He's like, community? No, I deal weed. I'm not part of a community.
I got news for you. He is right.
That's true, though. Like, I wrote this note down, so I just wanted to say it. The best way I can describe his childhood is if you've seen the Trailer Park Boys mixed with Little Rascals. But instead of playing dice, he's like, oh, I lost dice. Stab, 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 stab.
Yeah.
Like, this guy has been stabbed more than people who have...
As someone, by the way,
50 Cent's been shot.
Like, as someone, by the way, who has gone through is attempting to go through the visa acquisition process for the United States, how this man is able to hold a green card with the amount of arrests.
Oh, man, he didn't have a green card.
Forever.
He just rode in the back.
And pretended to be asleep.
Yeah, pretend to be asleep, and then one time they caught up with him, and the Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, and they were just still in character. And Nikolai Volkov said America was bad, so they checked out the car. And then Roddy Piper, the only person without a green card, was the only one they believed because he just said, he's like, I'm from South Carolina. And they're like, all right, you go.
Yeah.
You go, teen, they're fucking. Teen, these men are ravaging.
You take this man from, I assume, Turkey, and this other man from the red place. Good luck being eaten by these animals.
But, all right, so it's 1975. He goes into California.
Yeah, bell bottoms are being worn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He calls himself the lean, mean fighting machine because he's, like, so much smaller than everyone else. Everyone else in this era is... just Harley race, all forearms, no biceps. I fucking got big because I helped my dad move for 13 years, like 300 pounds of just straight up fat.
Yeah.
And he's just this little kid. And
I'm the NWA champion Harley race. Everyone says I'm really good at promos, but all they really do is mutter things and say the word athlete in a very odd. I'm an athlete. Everyone knows that I am an athlete. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to wear a needlessly circusy themed jacket and an afro that's off-putting.
If you look at my face, but not my hair, I'm intimidating. But as soon as you look at my hair, I'm just kind of like a guy who got out of prison and decided to be a birthday clown.
The thing to remember about me is these aren't tattoos. They just were there one day.
I put my forearm in some ketchup at the keg. I like ketchup on steak. I'm a monster.
The other thing to, of course, remember is that once you are married, anything you do with another man is not considered homosexual. It's just a way to not cheat on your wife.
It's in the don't countsies, which is what
The don't countsies.
That's all I call my 20s.
That's the tag team that Harley and Roddy formed in 1978. Anyway, the year is 1975.
Okay, so he's small, so basically all these guys are taking a lot of offense on him. Taking a lot of offense on him, and he's one of the top draws, so he's winning the matches at the end, but it's essentially like... It's like Kalisto when he beat Braun Strowman. It just kind of happens. And it's like, oh, Kalisto won, but Braun Strowman threw him into the first row, and then he got a roll-up. So that's all the moves, right? And so Gene LaBelle basically says, like, if these guys are taking, like, a bunch of liberties with you, he just teaches them how to wrestle and just beat the shit out of them and basically be like, you're not doing this.
Yeah. Ha, I got you. Okay, goodbye.
But it starts the whole pattern of, which carries on the WWF, of Roddy comes in, they think he's too small, he's a manager, and he's a manager for Johnny Rods.
Yeah, he is.
Trained Taz. He's manager for Johnny Rods.
Red Hook, New York.
Who's doing like an Islamic gimmick because he tans.
Oh,
That's
God.
what he needed to do.
Oh, no. Because I'm surprised his name in the 70s, if someone who's doing a Muslim gimmick isn't just like the bad man.
But that's the thing. So he comes into California. He's doing a great job. Like, you can look up Roddy Piper Chavo Guerrero. And imagine this. This guy is 3 years into wrestling when he's doing it. Now, the only thing that changes about Roddy Piper, really, into the 80s even, is that he gets his hand mannerisms down because he starts out doing the Muhammad Ali like chop thing,
Yeah.
just pointing like that, which is I think that's a Dusty Rhodes thing. That's a fucking superstar Billy Graham thing. He does the cadence.
It's a Gorgeous George thing, by the way, is where it all comes from.
Exactly. And I think he was like cross paths with like Ali's manager as well. Like, I forget what the girl's name was.
I thought it was the trainer. What the fuck's his name? Angelo Dundee?
No, I mean like she basically sees a lot of potential in Roddy and is like, "You have the gift of the gab." Because like immediately, this guy's the best promo you've ever seen.
Oh my god!
Yeah, like Hogan took a while. Roddy Piper did not. And the thing is, and this is another thing.
And the other thing that you also have to remember in the Territory days is he was also willing to do crazy fucking shit. Like,
yes,
smash a beer bottle over his head for absolutely no reason.
Here's what starts out with is he starts realizing like, oh, these guys are all Mexican. What I'm going to do is be a piece of shit. So he does an interview. He's like, he does something really horrible to Chavo Guerrero, and says a bunch of ignorant stuff about Mexican people. And then he's like, you know what? I am sorry. Next week I'm going to interview your mother. And then next week he interviewed his mother, who was a donkey painted like a zebra with a sombrero on. And then he was like, and then it's so funny. Like,
oh
I didn't
my
understand why
god!
people thought Roddy Piper was funny because he kind of like in the 90s and like when I got to know him, he crossed into this like weird Y2J Chris Jericho era where it's like Chris Jericho was really funny in WCW as the Lionheart Chris Jericho, and then he went to WWF and was a babyface, and they were like, "Oh no, he's funny. Look how funny he is." And
Well, that's the problem.
Starts being really lame.
The Fed is not good at. They're not good at making anyone that isn't Stone Cold Steve Austin or Hulk Hogan. They don't know how to do something that the NWA was actually very good at, of giving someone room to develop and just be like, okay, this will be their portion of the show and we'll let them take care of it for 10 minutes. Do you know what I'm saying? And Roddy is very much that guy. That's why we're jumping ahead, but his promos are always sort of, they have an event type atmosphere to it, the way that the commentators shift how they're speaking, the thing of that, oh, next week I'm going to do this, and that has nothing to do with wrestling, but now there's so much heat on whatever matchup he's going to have. The crowd, if they're Mexican, immediately hates him. Let's be honest, it's the 70s in California. Any white people are like, that guy's right.
Yeah. The best part is the follow-up to that, he apologizes again. And apparently Chavo Guerrero wasn't informed of this and literally was pissed off because he was like, my mom's been nice to you, man.
Yeah.
Because like Roddy Piper essentially like loves his mom, but also doesn't talk to her because
Kayfabe.
because he grew up he basically was a pod. He was found in a pod in Saskatchewan.
What are you doing with your arms wrapped around that person who birthed you?
Highly regular.
Yeah. Why did you do that thing I do to women to your dad?
So
I was implying that he kissed his dad on the cheek, not fucked his dad, by the way.
Oh, he fucked his dad.
Hey, fucked my dad.
Any affection. Why would you do that thing with it? You mean a handshake? Yeah, I don't get it. So the next week he comes out and to apologize is going to play the Mexican, the national anthem of Mexico on the bagpipes, and then starts playing La Cucaracha. And immediately, this is according to, of course, the book, which is written by his kids, which is always like, you're gonna like your dad's a hero if your kid's writing the book, which is nice. But anyway,
which he is.
Which is oddly a nice read because it's like, oh, he never had a family, but then he made one that liked him. But so basically, if you ever seen like, I watched all these Abdullah the Butcher versus Bruiser Brody matches in Puerto Rico, and literally it's like they have a piece of rope supposed to make people not go past.
By the way,
if people start going past, the military starts gun-butting them with machine guns.
Yeah. And also, by the way, you need to stress, when Dylan says rope, he means like a piece of twine. Like it's
one piece of twine.
It's in its diameter, or no, circumference. Its thickness is like maybe a centimeter. Like it's fucking tiny.
I haven't seen this over here, but definitely it's in Canada, where it's how Italian grandparents grow tomatoes. Like it's
absolutely correct.
Twine on a hockey stick. Don't go past.
Yeah.
Which, like, I'm not going to ruin these nice tomatoes, but, you know. Anyway, so...
In a similar way, by the way, if you touch an Italian man's tomatoes in Toronto, he will gun butt you.
Oh, he'll kill you.
Yeah.
No questions asked. You'd be like, I'm sorry, you die no. Yeah, Mario. They're all Mario.
What about the women?
Hey, Luigi.
Very good.
So my point is that
How is that the most racist thing in the podcast so far? We talked about a man.
we're going to get to the fact that Roddy Piper, so customized shirts were, and he wore just straight out white power on them.
Yeah, of course he did.
The white power. But so my point is the military, who's the reason why people aren't rushing the ring, are like, oh fuck this guy's a dick, and just let people run in the ring, and he just had to walk out through, and he can keep in mind he's a teenager and he's just getting stabbed repeatedly.
Yeah.
Which colors the rest of his life. He legitimately believes this angle, like he doesn't understand the 90s, that no one's gonna stab him.
Yeah, it's also, keep in mind, like when he was sent to Puerto Rico, this is jumping ahead, but when him and Flair became friends, Flair does 2 NWA title defenses in Puerto Rico. First one, it was super crazy, but he escaped. The second one, he's like, I'm bringing back
Skipping
him.
ahead a bit because this is like the 80s.
This is the 80s, but I'm just to illustrate your point of how fucking far Rodney would push it. Is they were in a fucking soccer stadium. As they're driving to the ring, there were people selling rocks to throw at the wrestlers, and he's brought Roddy as muscle, and Roddy's like, and Rick is like, just keep it cool out there. He's like, oh, you got it, pal. And then, and then
starts a riot.
Walks to the ring with an American flag, sings the entire anthem, and then trips the other wrestler, and the military points a bunch of guns at him. And then at that moment, Flair literally just lays in the ring, makes the other guy cover him.
Yeah.
And they just leave. And Rodney forgot to agree to a price, so they pay him in a spittoon filled with cocaine.
The other thing I had heard about that was they were like, it was just a question. I don't know if Piper asked it or someone else, but someone asked like, hey, all the wrestlers are getting stabbed on the way to the ring. Why don't you just like move the fans back so that they have a clear path to the ring? And then the promoter said, those are top selling seats.
Yeah.
It's like, the people pay hundreds of dollars to stab those wrestlers, and I need their money. I love professional wrestling in the 70s.
The Colon family and Victor Jovica of Puerto Rico are like, they literally were like, Bruiser Brody got stabbed by a guy that they employed, and then they were like, well, this won't be good for business. Better make sure he's found innocent.
Yep, stabbed in the showers.
All right, so it's the 70s. He's still in California. This is also, by the way, where he first meets Pat Patterson, and something happened with Pat Patterson that he implied that, and he later said, no, he didn't fuck me. But whenever he talks about Pat Patterson, he's like, oh, he's a young man, and he doesn't like me no more because I talk to him. It's like, what the fuck happened?
Here's the weird thing about Piper is that essentially, and this kind of like is another creepy thing, is that he calls Gene LaBelle his dad. Like any nice man who's older than him, he calls his dad. Like he says he has like a bunch of dads.
Yeah. Well, because he is the young, like, we're comedians. We also know the type of comedian that he would be.
Yeah.
In that it's that they show a lot of promise. They spike really huge in the beginning because they have all this potential and fucking pain to draw from to make comedy out of.
Yeah.
But then very few of them are able to get past that. They usually get marred in sort of that uncanny valley right after that. And I think Piper was able to pull himself out of that in wrestling because he kept finding new father figures to impress.
He was also so uncannily good at what became such a huge part of wrestling.
That was not a big part of it then. Like he was very much part of the innovation of pushing towards promos being an essential part of wrestling.
Yeah, and he had like a really weird character where he shows up in a kilt, which at the time people are, that guy's gay, I hate that. And then he's like, you guys are shit. He's like, I'm not shit. You were in a skirt, buddy. You're fucking gay. That's bad. And he's like, well, you're an inferior race. And they're like, I don't like that either. That's two things I don't like. Usually I can go on one.
Because he leaves California and goes to the
Portland?
He then goes to Portland, then Portland to Carolina.
He does a quick stop off in San Francisco, and this also starts California and Portland also start this weird thing where Piper, this is a weird thing where it was before stables really. So he was so small, they felt they always had to have someone else with him. So he would like tag with Killer Brooks, he would tag with Rick Martel, And it's this weird
It's
thing.
interesting because that is something that he then always continued. He always
Exactly.
had guys
but
around
it's before stables. So even in the WWF, it's not like Piper's fellas. It's like Roddy Piper is bodyguard is Bob Orton Jr. and he hangs out with Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Like there's never. That's why the Four Horsemen are so. It's so weird that it took so long for people to do that. Like
Well,
let's
they-
label and market this thing
But
instead
they-
of just having.
But the Four Horsemen weren't the first one. There was also Devastation Incorporated. There was also the Freebirds. There was
Yeah, there's
examples
Legion of Doom as well with like.
because the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors came out of something called the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, with Jake Roberts
Yeah.
and Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, and Paul Ellering I think was a wrestler in it.
Yeah, and then came in
And then was
started
like, you know,
managing.
instead of being a wrestler, I'm just going to wear
I'm just gonna have the Wall Street Journal
and a
say that I'm-
kimono for inexplicably no reason.
Yeah, and Piper has this really great thing where he would, and this is the weird thing about people would say like, oh, they all improv their promos. There was no script, and that's why it was very good. Well, Piper had this weird cadence where what he would do is he would essentially have notes,
And he
and he would repeat the guy's name. He would repeat his opponent's name.
How did he
over
write his
and over
notes?
and
Did
over.
you get to that anecdote? That's not in the book. I found that in a shoot interview.
How did he write his notes?
He would drink and drive
Yes, he would.
and with a notepad on his lap,
Okay.
and he would just start yelling shit out while he was driving by himself. And then when he would hit on something that he liked, he'd write it down.
That's really interesting. There probably would have been a ton more less accidents in the 70s if he just did this now, because
Yeah.
he would just have a voice recorder.
Yeah, or if he just, did it in a room as opposed to it. He's like, oh no, you got to do it in the car.
You gotta be doing
And also, I don't know why he made it clear that he drank and drive as well. Like, okay, so what I got to do first is I got to have a couple of beers, and then okay, here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, it's this weird murky thing where his gimmick is he's Scottish, but then he does a loser leaves town match and comes back as the masked Canadian until he was unmasked. A lot like everyone does. Like you legitimately
Like the
seen
Midnight
this, like,
Rider or Mr. America or
Juan Cena.
Juan Cena. I don't
Right.
even remember that.
Juan Cena was after John Cena lost some contract match, and they had him on house shows as Juan Cena, which is great.
Oh, is that when he lost to the Nexus?
Yes.
Ugh.
And Portland also marks the first time where he has to play a babyface because it's the first time where the top guy in the territory, it's Playboy Buddy Rose, who just lived like we should, where he lived in his car with his two dogs and just like watching TV. All he would do is, and people would be like, how is he still alive? Because Playboy Buddy Rose, what he would do is, he would just eat fast food all the time. He had diabetes, but he's like, but I still like fast food. So we just ate, and then apparently diabetes was like, you win somehow, Buddy Rose's body. We're gone. And he just hung out with his two dogs, and then he had his dogs stuffed after they died.
It's the creepiest yet
And
great.
he is the guy who lived the best.
Yeah, of course. Wrestling in the 70s is like comedy in Canada now. Why are these homeless people inside? They're performing.
I've never seen that T-shirt's too tight, and those pants are 8 sizes too big.
Yeah. Well, he found one of the items, and then the other one he just woke up wearing.
Is that a yarmulke or just the top of a luchador mask? It's both.
Yeah. He wasn't, but now he is. Which? Don't know.
So this is
And again, it's also Don Owens. The relationship that Piper had with Don Owens was very much solidified in this time period, and he never went against him. Like in the time where the WWE literally just was taking over every territory, Piper put a line in the sand and would not help him compete against Don Owens.
Yeah.
Wouldn't help in like facilitating a sale. So what Vince McMahon was doing when he started doing the takeover, which actually happened a lot, it started happening around 83.
basically as soon as his father
Brother-
was fresh in the ground, he started this.
Like as soon as there was a beep noise and a doctor started saying the time, Vince was on the phone in the hospital being like, "Get me Stu Hart." Yeah, Vince.
You wanna fuck me, big friend. You fuck me, Vince.
Why is he offering just him or Brett?
I don't want to have sex with you or Brett. I don't see why you could then. You wanna fuck me, Vince. Lose two hearts into consensual alpha male gay sex. Stu Hart, I believe, was gay, but it was just to have the alphaness of like he would missionary guys and then look at their dicks and be like, look at that little thing. Look at that little
Why would he?
useless
When
thing.
you say missionary, so he basically would just rub his dick on another man's
No, he puts
dick
his dick in their butt.
and then put his dick so big
No, he
he
puts
can
his dick,
missionary it?
he missionary anals them, and then says their dick is nothing. And that's Stu Hart. Look at that thing. It doesn't even count. It's a long clit with 2 tumors. Loser.
By the way, Stu Hart and Roddy Piper are
Best friends.
cousins.
Really?
Roddy Piper is the second cousin of the Hart family. Just to think, if you think, well, man, that dysfunction really spread far in that fucking bloodline.
Fucking Christ.
I love my kid, but I'd never say it. No, you excuse me, I'm going to go in the basement and beat up these children I met.
Because Piper, so think of how mean. All right, imagine Roddy Piper, lost street kid, and now this anecdote is supposed to be funny. So this is one of the first times. This is the first time he meets Lord Alfred Hayes, who, if you'll read anything on Lord Alfred Hayes, he was king of the weird pranks.
I would say a terrible man.
Yeah, very British in a way where he's like, "Well, I didn't put my penis on you." Is that a good one? Was that a good impression?
It was great. But it's also Lord Alfred Hayes and Gene Okerlund are tied for, on television we seem nice, but if you meet us in any sort of darkened situation, it's going to get sexually very aggressive.
Do you understand fear, ma'am? You are about to. You will now learn fear. All right, so we're gonna get to
Prepare to meet your maker.
we're gonna take a break.
Very close personal friend. No, you're gonna do the Lord Alfred Hayes anecdote. There'll possibly be some more Gene Okerlund impressions.
Okay.
Then we're gonna take a break.
So here's the Roddy Piper is talking to he's a young man, and Lord Alfred, I forget which territory this is, but he's talking to the promoter, and the promoter's telling him what to do.
This is in Oregon. I think this is in Oregon.
Okay, and then yeah, we're doing that, whatever.
Okay, yeah,
and
good
he's
to
got his
hear.
hand out, and he's like, "Can you hold this for me?" And then Piper's like, "Okay," puts his hand out, still very focused on promoter, very good listener, and he feels that this thing in his hand is not moving, but he's like, "Whatever, I gotta listen to promoter," and then he looks down, and it's Lord Alfred Hayes' dick. But apparently he would do this all the time, where he'd be like, he's like, just tag me in, tag me low. That's how I like to come into the match. Lord Alfred Hayes would do, and then they'd
take out his dick,
and then he'd take out his dick, and they'd just grab his dick, which is such a weird thing because it's like kids are at this thing, and you're just showing your dick and a bunch of kids.
And apparently, it was a fat dick.
Yeah, of course it was. That doesn't work with small dicks.
Yeah, it does. It's even funnier if it's just a little.
Yeah, but it have to be balls. You'd have to put just balls in their hand. And then you can know what balls are. You'd know what balls are. All right, so try dear, could you please help me molest you? That's my Lord Alfred Hayes now.
Talking to me now is the police. They don't have the evidence because I've bleached the scene.
I'd love to help you out, sir, but I haven't heard of that woman I just killed. Oh, no.
My wife
thing again.
thinks that I know her name. All right. Everyone talks about Ric Flair being predatory towards stewardesses. I don't focus on people that have my name written down.
Oh, dear. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with
NWA Piper.
NWA Piper.
Which, for me, it's great, Piper, because the arrests in this period are so needless.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, let me tell you, Rick, we'll just drive drunk, and anytime we stop at a stop sign, I'll push your car through.
If I see a man with blonde hair, I'm gonna kick him in his dick.
Yeah.
That was really bad.
I hope I don't see the Briscoes in an airport, because I'll just fight them even though they're my friends.
All right, so we're going to have a break right now. Now.
Ooh, what a break we're having.
That was such a good episode of the Wrestler Review again. Ladies and gentlemen, please rate and subscribe to the Wrestler Review.
Of course, we also want to review it.
Please review our podcast for the love of fucking Christ.
And also, guys, give us some money. Not with a Patreon
Nope.
or some sort of naughty Amazon link.
We don't want you to give us money for a goddamn nothing, right? Here's what we want you guys to do. We both have comedy albums. Please buy those comedy albums on our website, thejohnhastings.com. That is John's website. And DylanAgot.com. The A is for awesome. I'm an awesome guy. DylanAgot.com, thejohnhastings.com. Please buy our comedy albums. We love you. Please make love to us in our beds while we're naked.
The A is for Atherton. Welcome back. I am not wearing trousers, but it looks like I am because I'm covered in the blood of a woman I met.
Coming up next, me murdering Kimberly.
Remember when Alex Trebek got my name wrong at WrestleMania 7? I call him every night at 4 in the morning and breathe deeply into the phone.
I hope Gene Okerlund isn't a serial killer like we think he is.
It would make a lot of sense based on how anytime he's brought up in shoot interviews, it's like, oh, Gene Okerlund, there's people think he's nice.
Put that goddamn cigarette out on my dick. That was the full clip. On my fucking cock. Make it burn.
Fuck it!
Fuck it. My dick with that cigarette. My penis is 5 inches. Without the cigarettes I put in the dick hole, 1 inch. It's filled with cigarettes. It's filled with old cigarettes.
When I worked in the AWA with Vern Gagne, my payment was just to be able to watch his daughter pee.
Oh, no. Speaking of watching someone's daughter pee, Roddy Piper he starts his first feud in Mid-Atlantic. He does one of these, what people think is his best promo work ever with Mad Dog. What is it, Mad Dog Maine? I think it's Mad Dog Maine.
Yeah.
He does a 4-minute promo where it's just him in the woods. And people say it's great, but keep in mind these are 1980s wrestling editing methods. So
Wait, are you telling me that the camera work is slightly shoddy and there's no white balance, so everything comes across like it's a weird dream that was filmed in Europe?
It's legit. There's no bleeds. It's just cuts. So
Yeah.
he's going through the woods in a dog collar, crawling, whispering Mad Dog. And then, okay, have you seen this?
No.
Okay, we're going to pause right now.
All right, we're back. We're 14 seconds into the Mad Dog Main Roddy Piper promo. Currently, Roddy...
Sorry, I just interrupt. What we're going to do is line it up, 14 seconds. It's on YouTube as Georgia Wrestling. Awesome Roddy Piper promo. Awesome is all caps. So
Currently, it has the vibe of a Timothy McVeigh home movie. And Rowdy Roddy Piper, I assume, he's hiding among some trees, looking like some sort of weird Halloween costume of a Navy SEAL. And we are going to start playing in 3, 2, 1. All right, now he's moving from around the trees like the woman from The Ring. Oh, as he gets closer, he's not actually dressed in a Navy SEAL costume. He's just wearing what I assume are the clothes he got married in.
he's wearing the classic. He's wearing the classic Canadian tuxedo plus a dog collar around him. This is the advent of the dog collar match as well. So he's running, hide behind a tree. All of this is. There's so much cocaine being used.
Oh yeah, and he's got a ripped jacket. Okay, he ran towards the camera, then they just cut for no reason. Now he just popped out of a lake.
He just caught out of a lake.
In a completely different clothes.
And he's just yelling, "Where's Mad Dog?"
Yeah, now for some reason you see a truck as if to imply he's in the truck. This being, of course, 70s wrestling, that's a big possibility that's his house. Oh, Roddy's actually behind the fucking wheel of the truck.
All right, now here's the promo.
So I'm looking for Mad Dog. He's wearing a different shirt completely. He's got his ear all taped up. He's wearing one glove. He's just slammed the truck door closed because he's afraid someone's going to get his jars. Now he's telling you exactly probably where he's going to go. Mean Gene, by the way, is somewhere in the middle distance, very upset there's a camera crew nearing his favorite hunting ground. Rowdy is just taking out that chain, which, while he also uses it for a dog collar match, he also keeps it in the car because it functions as a piece of currency for street people. I'll trade you this chain, all right, for 2 cans of soup.
It's a great promo, and this is the first Roddy Piper promo that I've seen in the research for. He does the panting thing. He goes, so this is like him finding his voice, and as you can see, because of the dog collar, he's also like grounded himself. Oddly,
Yeah.
there's a guy just for his Sunday walk in the background.
There's a guy. There's two black guys walking through a park in Georgia, seeing a white man in a truck with a chain, and they're suddenly thinking, "Uh-oh,
This walk just turned into a run."
Oh, he's now taking out a bottle of beer."
Oh, this is when he gets it right.
The amount of times he does this is so fucking ridiculous. So what he would do is he takes a bottle of beer and smashes it on his face. He did it one time in the studio in Atlanta, and he fucks himself up so badly. Oh, that one he was fine, actually.
Yeah. That's the funny thing is,
Oh, because he does
he
it.
did that trick loads of times, but there's only one where he really fucked it up, and then that's the one that everyone's seen on the internet because that's how the internet works.
Yeah.
And then this dog is his mom's dog. And his mom's dog is like, no.
I wonder how long that dog.
Oh, this is all right. This is the one where it's like,
What the fuck is this? Is he hanging?
Yeah, he's hanging himself.
This is fucking insane.
Yeah, and that's the Roddy Piper.
Oh, by the way, the YouTube the YouTube videos that are recommended are a bunch of Roddy Piper promos and then erased the tragic story of Chris Benoit.
Yeah, exactly. He's not. Don't worry. He's not a Heidenreich. He's not a Chris Benoit truther. Jesus Christ. But then that's Roddy Piper. That's how he got his start doing. He does the bottle thing, which obviously they wouldn't let him do
In the Fed.
In the Fed.
Okay, Vince, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a bottle and hit myself with it of actual beer near kids.
Why don't you like the idea, Vince?
What's also interesting is this is very much a time where everyone wants the NWA title. He does win championships in Mid-Atlantic and other places, but already it's not a focus on him getting any sort of belt. He's already quickly transitioning into, you just need to put him on television and you'll sell some T-kits.
He is the co-headliner.
Yeah.
Is what he is. He's the guy. He's the B show headliner. It sounds weird, but
I would say what it is if you watch like a UFC pay-per-view, I find now, because it's becoming a very popular sport, there's the like match that people like me be like, oh, I know who John Jones is, but then there's the match that's like 2 down that my friends who actually love the UFC are like, I want to watch that, and that's what Roddy Piper sort of became very quickly.
He very quickly became the old guy spot where it's like, oh, you want to see Floyd Mayweather with Conor McGregor? Well, Sugar Shane Mosley is also on the card. Remember that guy? He's going to beat up somebody. You know? You just need somebody and he'll make them. And he's really set himself apart. This is also a time when he's basically decided, like, I'm tired of being a manager and I need to be taken seriously. And what they would do is every territory basically had a guy named Mad Dog, and Roddy Piper, that's how he would turn face. His Mad Dog would do something crazy, or he would come in and he was a believable foil for anybody, which is really crazy given his size. Like, he was even like, Andre the Giant loved wrestling him because he was like, you're the only small guy who I can believably have a match against, because he would just be like, Andre would go for a choke, eyes, nuts, eyes, nuts.
And it's also one of those things where he also was legitimately in the extracurricular times where, because wrestling at this time was basically pirates in a town, and they would have competition. Yeah, I'm putting the mic towards my face. They would have competitions of who can drink more. And the most famous one was between the Purple Haze, who it's now come to light was like, oh, he's just a crackhead we found, versus Roddy Piper, and him and Piper had a drink-off. Now, it's still disputed on who won, but Ric Flair claims that, well, they both drank all of the Crown Royal we bought, and I could only assume that is what I would describe as a needless amount of Crown Royal.
Yeah.
And that the Purple Haze was carried out, and Rowdy Piper walked upstairs and went to bed. And that proves that Roddy Piper is more of a man than the Purple Haze. Keep in mind, it's not good when you beat a crackhead in a drinking contest.
Well, it's also, it says a lot about your drinking habits when Ric Flair just watches. When Ric Flair's like, no, thank you. No, I have a lot of substance abuse problems, but this is not one of them. So this is Georgia Championship Wrestling. He comes in as what some people credit as the first color commentator. Color commentator.
This is where he comes in and he's doing the thing in the
and
tuxedo with the kilt. Yeah.
And it makes sense because what he does is he comes in as just a straight color commentator. This is Roddy Piper, professional wrestler. He's our color commentator. And for most weeks, he's just a straight color commentator. And then he slowly starts kind of digging into certain wrestlers. One in particular, who the fuck was it?
This is also, by the way, what really gave him credence with the NWA is because every single promoter loved this way of introducing a wrestler because it was a new way to get someone over quickly. It also meant that you didn't have to pay him for all the other loops. You could just pay him for one town for a while before you then had to put him on the loop, which they were all looking for because they were all rich, sketchy men.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that? I can bilk you out of physically harming your body by paying you so much less? Great.
And the other thing is, the NWA, keep this in mind when everyone's like, oh, the territories were great and blah, blah, blah. Why aren't the territories around? Which is a lot of what old guys say. They legitimately modeled the NWA after the Mafia.
Yeah.
That's how the NWA was. They were like, these Mafia guys have a great idea.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as the Mafia and the Valachi papers came out, they were like, wait a minute, what? Why are you doing this?
It's great. Great idea.
Yeah. So he starts picking at Bullet Bob
And by the way, if you don't believe me, Jim Ross tells the story of when Vince was doing the expansion and he was taking a shit during the NWA conference because he was Bill Watts' second, so you'd bring another guy who'd be your runner during the conference who wasn't allowed in the main meeting. Jim Ross was taking a shit, and he's like, I'm not sure which. He's like, he won't ever say which two promoters it was, but two promoters were just washing their hands, and they just went, we could just kill him.
Yeah.
And they were like, uh-oh. And he's like, I just put my feet up.
That's fantastic. So, and that's the other thing about introducing a guy this way is he gradually becomes a wrestler, and then when you want to turn him face, Don Morocco goes after Gordon Soley, and keeping in line that he has been a color commentator, a heel color commentator, and heel color commentators have this thing, obviously you all know it, where it's like, that's the way they turn faces. Someone attacks the old man that does play-by-play, which is weird because...
Was the reason why Don Morocco attacked Gordon Soley is because he just wanted to see if that guy's voice would change in fucking vocal tone at all?
Yeah. Oh no, I'm being attacked.
Oh, this is trouble. Better light a cigarette and drink more vodka.
I dropped my cigarette. No, I picked it up again. Not bothered.
Would anyone like to hear about how the NFL is definitely rigged?
That's so funny. Well, wrestling's fake, so it's all fake.
Yeah. As we all know, boxing is also not real.
So this is a major turning point. This is why he goes to Puerto Rico. This is a time before Google Maps, everybody. So he just takes a left when he should have taken a right and doesn't show up for a match. And everyone blackballs him, which is like insane.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you are great, but you didn't show up once. Fuck you.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't. You don't know how roads work. Get the hell out of here.
So yeah, this is the Georgia Championship Wrestling stuff. This is like leading into him being on the first Starrcade.
So the first Starrcade is another dog collar match with Greg the Hammer Valentine, where gimmick the chain. No. Instead, Greg the Hammer Valentine makes Rowdy Roddy Piper deaf.
Yeah. This is another thing where...
By the way, the match is an amazing match, and it's so brutal because they bleed like it's crazy.
Yeah, some people everyone throws around this being the first hardcore match. I mean, it's not. Like,
no.
Abdullah the Butcher's gimmick is very much stabbing people. Like his
like Bruiser Brody is just Tommy Dreamer who went to the gym. Like, I'll throw you.
Exactly. Plus a knee drop. Not
Again,
just carving his fucking face.
It's very sad that Bruiser Brody was stabbed, but thank God he didn't end up in ECW as just an old man hitting people with his cane.
Yeah, exactly. This is also the era where he does wear the white power on his shirt. He's very much searching. He's basically searching for some kind of identity. He goes to WWF because he wants to work New York, which is like obviously a huge territory because it's the center of everything, and he wants in there. Even Dusty's worked New York at this point. And
Oh yeah, because this is Dusty's first run in New York,
Yeah.
like for the old man and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so he goes in the middle of the ring with some jobber, and Piper would do this thing. You can see it in his first match in San Francisco. Was what he would do is on the bagpipes he would play Scotland the Brave, but he would start knowingly playing it wrong after a couple minutes and really stretching out the bad notes. And that was like his first thing he would do in a territory to get heat.
Just to really piss people off.
Yeah, really annoy people. So he comes out with his bagpipes and starts to play Scotland the Brave. But
I'm just trying to
it
get
won't-
the year he did this, by the way.
No worries.
Keep talking.
So it won't play. And the whole reason is because Freddie Blassie has filled his fucking bagpipes with old wet tissues. So he ruined his bagpipes to sabotage him from coming into
That's
the territory
fucked.
because he's Freddie Blassie, right?
Yeah, and
then-
this is in '79.
Yeah, because on his main Freddie Blassie comes in, he's like, "Oh man, don't worry, we're not gonna rib you. We're not gonna rib you. No one wants you in this territory. You're so talented. You're so talented." And then he's like, "Oh, thanks, guys." And then obviously the old man fucks with him. So Vince Senior won't work with him. Keep in mind that Vince Senior won't work with him. Of course, he goes to Georgia, but then he's one of the linchpins of Starrcade. And the other thing is this dog collar match. They want to do a really good job, him and Valentine, because Roddy Piper knew his dad, and because he started wrestling when he was a fucking fetus.
Yeah, and because, Roddy more than likely had, woke up and Johnny Valentine was putting blood in his mouth and went, "I got that from an AIDS patient."
This is some of my free blood.
Yeah, keep in mind, it's like, oh, I really respected Johnny Valentine. He only one time held an axe to my face and just went, "Anytime I want, I get to see how you think."
Oh, I can see why you like me so much.
Yeah.
It's right in your brains. So Greg Valentine, he does this match, but then the match goes what he said was too well because basically Jim Crockett's like, "That was great. We're going to do it in 15 towns." And the sheepskin, they got a sheepskin collar. Yeah. And apparently the rash was so bad that they both had to just get oil. Their necks were just covered in oil with this fucking horrible rash.
Why not just switch up the collar? Again, I love wrestling.
Because they won't
Pay for another collar.
Yeah, because they're like, chain's expensive. Fuck
Yeah.
it.
You can
You don't have to buy a new chain. No, you do.
Yeah. It's Carolina. They're really, really hard to find chains here.
So, also, side note, this is when he does go on his first date with his wife, where he brought a gun on the date.
A woman named Kitty, who was a waitress in a diner.
Yep, with all the wrestlers would go.
And a woman, by the way, who, I gotta say, literally is the most understanding human being.
Must be, yeah.
Old Roddy likes to get into a couple beers when he's anything.
Yeah. Why do you live on the top of a mountain? Was that your choice, Roddy? I say it was my choice, but it was clearly my wife going, I know how to keep this marriage alive. I'll keep him away from anyone that didn't come out of his balls or fucks him.
No, but legit, brought a gun onto his... He smoked weed on the way there, and then they hung it on a swing set, which sounds really nice, but he had a gun on one pocket and a knife in the other, just in case this bitch tries some shit.
Well, you don't know who's in the woods.
I've been hanging out a lot with Johnny Valentine, and she told me that anyone who doesn't have a dick is up to no good. She could be hiding a mouse in there.
Well, you're hiding a mouse in your fucking snatch, and I know it.
It's also, this is the time, by the way, how he gets out of Puerto Rico is Jim Barnett.
Yeah.
All the predatory gay men in wrestling in this time.
Yeah.
He's the best one.
Yeah, exactly.
Sees him again and is like, oh, my boy. And then brings him back in. That leads to the whole Greg the Hammer Valentine sort of stuff. It's slowly building up. Vince now actually gets a lot of credence because Ole Anderson gets into a huge fight with Jim Barnett. Barnett to fuck. Oh, but keep in mind, it's now they can now figure out the entire reason why Vince McMahon was able to get the Superstation on TBS, the access to all those other wrestlers through that, was because Ole Anderson got Jim Barnett fired because Jim Barnett was using an expense account from TBS to pay for his apartment.
Yeah.
Jim Barnett then went and worked for Vince, knew everyone in every syndicator market because of all of his different times moving around the earth to build up wrestling, handed all that information over to Vince, allowed Vince to purchase Georgia Championship Wrestling to go on the TBS Superstation, so he was on both of the big cable companies in 1983-84, forcing Jim Crockett to pay $1 million to get the contract so he could do WrestleMania was just so Jim Barnett could fuck Ole Anderson.
That's crazy.
It's the whole reason.
This is also the weird thing where Ole Anderson, like, Piper hated Ole Anderson.
Yeah,
But Ole Anderson really helped his career because the whole reason the dog collar match happened and all that stuff is Piper, like anybody, wanted to be as good at everything as everyone. Meaning, like, all right, so this is the first round of Flair versus Steamboat, and Flair and Steamboat are doing like these high-flying matches. So what he would do is he would be booked on a house show match with Flair or Steamboat, and he would also do like high-flying shit. And then Ole Anderson just lit into him and was like, that's not you. Like, you can do it, congrats.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Like,
Stay on the fucking mat.
yeah, stay on the mat. You're a brawler. Like, you're the guy who like fucking scratches and claws, and as a babyface, one of the first guys, I don't think one of the first guys, but certainly one of the first guys that this early on I saw where like he's a babyface but he still kicks people in nuts. Like his whole career he's like low blow, eye poke. Like, it's not fun to play as Roddy Piper in video games because there's no moves. You just eye poke, groin kick, sleeper.
Well, he's the last guy who got, like, they finally was like, oh, his finishing move is a sleeper, but they only really brought that in when it was WCW.
Yeah, they only brought that in when he was a babyface.
Yeah.
Because you watch some of his opening match, he fucking different finisher every territory he goes to. Like,
Well, that's
in San Francisco was a neck breaker.
But that's also the thing with territory wrestling is no one, like, a few guys had their big move.
Yeah.
But it was a variety of stuff based on the program you're in, who you're wrestling, what they need to accomplish, how you need to stay over with that crowd. Because it's also different styles worked for different places based on what they'd seen. Like, the sort of famous thing is the idea of one of the big reasons why the Freebirds got over is it was legitimately the first time that anyone had ever hit one of the Von Erichs with something that wasn't a fist.
Yeah. And Piper is definitely from the school of, like, I don't need a finisher. His whole thing is he wins a match and then he just doesn't lose. Like, he gets counted out, gets DQ, runs away, something.
Which he, by the way, continues that trend throughout the rest of his career. We're slowly getting now to him about to enter the Fed.
Yeah.
Because the thing also is you need to, coming out of the dog collar match, all this travel, he's basically been nothing but on the road, getting the fuck kicked out of him because it's very, very intense, high-impact wrestling. He's smashing fucking beer bottles on his head.
Yeah.
So he's looking for a way to slow down,
Yeah.
but also make a shit ton of money. He's now settled down, married, and it comes at the perfect time because Vince now starts bringing people in to slowly move towards a full national expansion with the WWF.
And make this no mistake, he goes to the Fed for a myriad of reasons. Money, of course, is one of them. But the other thing is, this is the first time he gets to be the number one heel in a very well marketed territory because he is a baby face in Georgia, but he knows there's like Dusty's there. There's no way he's going to be number two forever.
Yeah. And it's also one of those things where he's also in the Carolinas, but he's always as sort of a foil to other people. He's number 2 or 3, depending if he's a heel, because then they have Ric Flair.
Exactly. No, yeah, and Flair, the entire Starrcade was built around, I mean, of course, you're listening to this, you probably know. It's a Flair for the gold, him against Harley Race.
It's him against Harley Race. Like, that card, by the way, is watching NWA stuff now is fucking amazing of just listen to the crowd reactions and how fucking into that they all are.
Yeah.
For how fucking weird it all looks. Like, the cage on that match is so fucking weird. The dog collar match is so uncomfortably intense and violent.
Yeah, the start of the dog collar matches, they both want to go as far away from each other as possible, so they do this weird test of strength with their neck.
Yeah.
And then Roddy Piper grabs a link of chain and just hits Greg Valentine in the face with it.
Like,
because they are friends, so they can do...
It's also the funny thing is whenever like Jim Cornette's like, ow, that hardcore shit you could. It's like, fuck you. You like Memphis wrestling where it's literally like, Jerry Lawler's going to drive a motorcycle to the ring and then takes a shit on a woman. Like,
or the best thing of all time, which we discovered during the Stasiak thing, where it's like, my sister, I fucked your sister and now your sister wants to fuck you too. That's how we introduce characters. Stan the Man Stasiak's son's here, and he has an insatiable thirst for pussy.
Dylan, best thing about Roddy in this era.
I mean, you got to say promos. The whole thing's gonna be promos. He's
absolutely
the best
gonna be promos.
ever. He is the best ever. He is
The best. Not only is he
he's
the
better than Flair because legitimately, we'll get onto this in the next episode. But I even was like, "Fuck this guy." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
fuck this guy. And the other thing is, he's great too during this era more than any other because
I disagree. His promos in the early part of like Piper's Pit going into WrestleMania
that's his best work. But the weird thing is, his look lines up with it. Like what I mean is, like the dog collar match is when he starts doing steroids. We can just say he did steroids. It came out in the trial against the Horian. He did steroids, and it's very obvious that he starts doing steroids to be taken
seriously against Hulk
as a
Hogan.
wrestler.
Yeah.
No, and as a wrestler, because you look at him against Greg the Hammer Valentine, and they're both pretty big. But then his natural size is way more in line with what he did in the 90s when he had long hair. And he's just a thin guy. He's just and not a thin guy. Like, he's a thin guy. He's a big person, but he's like naturally not that big. And it's this weird thing where him as a kid, also you can see why he drew so much ire, because it's like this fast-talking, shitty, racist kid. And he legit, even though his upbringing is essentially like, I was born in a field where there was only weed and one guy who wanted to steal it from me. He looks like a shitty kid. He looks like a shitty racist fucking kid with a spoon in his mouth.
Say it. He looks like someone from Saskatchewan.
He's very much playing a guy from... He is the most true Canadian character ever in wrestling, I will say this, because he is all about his roots, even though he's very clearly Canadian. Canadians have this weird thing where even...
Yeah.
They'll ask you what your background is because no one wants just to be Canadian.
And I'm cured of it because I moved over here and I'm like, no, I'm a Canadian person.
Yeah, you say you're something else other than Canadian if you only live in Canada, and then if you move, to another place, you get so frustrated with every other nationality, and there are weird schisms because they're not exactly you.
Correct.
I'm a racist now.
We all know that. I am completely agree. His best thing by a fucking country mile is his promos. His worst thing, and this is actually very hard, I would say... I don't even know. It's really fucking difficult.
It goes in with promos, but I mean, I don't know, man. Race baiting?
Yeah.
It's why he's better. It sounds weird, but it's why he's better than Flair is because it says a lot about someone. Their character is, I am a racist. I do not like the nearest I don't like the prevailing nationality in this area. What's the worst thing about Roddy Piper, John?
I'd say his childhood ruined him. He can't function as a normal person. He's literally abused by all these people, and he tells it like fun stories. It's like, oh, and then there was the time Pat Patterson just lured me into an alley, and everyone's just like, oh my God, this poor man.
But that's a lot of what life was back
Absolutely.
then. Is people just not cluing in like,
Oh, he's just being friendly, putting his mouth where I pee.
no.
edit that in again. Yeah, but that's like it. Most people don't. I mean, I don't want to get real dark with all this, but yeah. So that was a bad one. That was a bad thing. I think the worst. Yeah, his worst thing is his dad. His dad.
He's a terrible man.
I don't think his dad was a terrible man. He's just like, I don't understand it, and I don't want to talk to you. It's kind of like my son lives different than me, which means no. No, I don't want you to live different than me.
Yeah.
So
What
you're doing doesn't count.
Why aren't you just a smaller version of me, Roddy? Next week, we get into the first Fed run. Things to look forward to. All the times he got drunk with Don Morocco.
Yep.
The amount of times the NYPD had to tell him to cool it because people were coming to kill him.
Yeah.
The fact that because of that, he became very good friends with Jimmy Kimmel.
Think of this. The reason why Roddy Piper is so worried about being stabbed throughout his career is because from the first, he started wrestling in '69 and stopped heel in '87. Really, So that's 18 years. Subtract like 3 or 4. 14 years of this man's life, 13, 14 years of this man's life was legitimately trying to be stabbed. He was like, what do you have an idea for a promo?
Oh, just make him attack me.
Okay.
You want to sell out? Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go down to Martin Luther King Avenue, and I'm going to call them all crackheads.
No, but legit, he just had no fear, man. He had no fear.
I would say it's even worse. It's not that he had no fear. It's that he knew what he was doing, and he was just like, why am I afraid? Yeah. Oh, yeah. A stranger stabbed me? My dad used to get drunk and wake me up in the middle of the night and just show me a bullet and went, I called this one my son.
By the way, I just want to do a quick thing before we end the episode. When I say he did steroids, no malice there. Everyone did steroids, and the fact that he got that big that quickly, like basically added 30 pounds of muscle, means that the man was trying very hard. It's just that steroids help you.
Hey, you don't like people who look better than you, Dylan. I know it's weird.
No one looks better than me, so I'm friends with everybody.
Good point. Also, highlights of this episode, the discovery that Gene Okerlund is a predatorial serial killer.
We touched on it before, but we hadn't explicitly said that he's a serial killer. My hunting ground.
Close personal friend of mine, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Also, at the end of every one of these episodes, I'm just going to cram it with Piper promos because they are perfect.
Oh.
So we're going to hear a bunch of stuff from... I'm going to try and do one from every era.
Next
I'm going to
week,
try and do one from every territory. Sorry.
Next week
you're going to hear California, you're going to hear Georgia, and you're going to hear one from Portland.
And next week, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of next week's episode, you will hear the first Piper's Pit, which is everything he's learned in this episode perfectly encapsulated in a little time capsule because he's speaking to a man from Mexico who claims to be from Cleveland, Ohio.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. All right, so this is episode 1 of Roddy Piper. And
Go buy tickets to our Edinburgh shows. You don't need to be in Scotland. Just sell out those shows.
Yeah, please help us pay for our stuff. And also, yeah, so this was up until Georgia Championship Wrestling, obviously. So its span on this one was 1969 to 1983. And now we're going to do 1983, 84, basically the first WrestleMania up until up until they live. All right. We love you. Bye-bye.
Jack, Hector Guerrero, I have fought your brother, I have fought your father, I have fought your mother, I have fought everybody in your family, Hector Guerrero. But I am still here, Hector Guerrero. But I'll tell you one thing. We have a contest that is not only going to be a contest, Hector Guerrero, it is going to be a bloodbath, Hector Guerrero, because you have been a bigger pain in my side, Hector Guerrero, than any one of the stinking Guerreros. And let me tell you something. I ain't going to go for it lightly, Hector Guerrero, because you know who I am. You sit at home with your fat bellies and your construction boats, drinking your beer. You know who I am. You know that I am one of the finest athletes in the world today. And Hector Guerrero, you are going to find out just how fine I am, brother, while all you are out there laughing at it, joking at the lean, mean machine, brother. I'm going to be in there with you, smoking and poking, brother.
Yes, I'm almost at a loss for words here, but a very special announcement of David, as you said, because you want to do it, David, right here. I think he wants to do it. You want to do it. Roddy Piper. Some very disheartening news. Ladies and gentlemen, King Richard, the legend, is dead. And I'm the one that finished him off. You see, all this time, I've been sitting here listening to Ric Flair talking about me, telling how skinny I am, how my skinny little arms are, and he's like, I guess he's like, all of a sudden, I don't hear no,
I don't see nobody walking around anymore. All of a sudden, I don't see nobody having no fun anymore from Ric Flair. And you want to know why? Check it out. This is why, you see, because I am the new United States champion. Now, hold on. I have Ric Flair. You see, I know you're out there on the monitor. The big tears in your eyes. Your nose is running. He's probably drowning from the size of his nose running. I have a little present for you, Ric Flair. So I'd like you to come on out here because you got nothing anyway. I thought out of the goodness, just the mercy of my heart, I thought I would wrap this little present up for you, seeing as I am the champion, and I would give you this tiny present. Because after all, you said I was a woman, and I would like to know, how does it feel to get beaten by a woman, Flair? You see, the problem is... here comes Rick. Well. Here comes the Slim Whitman of wrestling. Listen, Mr. Flair.
I do not want any trouble out of you two. You understand?
No.
All right, we're gonna give Rick another microphone.
First of all, let me say one thing. I'm a professional athlete. You've known me for a long time. And any plans I have for him will take place right over there in some arena in either the United States or Canada.
Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, Mr. Ric Flair, the Mae West of wrestling. I have a little something for you here, you see. I have a little present just to show you that I'm really a wonderful guy. Here's just a little something that I have had for a long time that I know you could never have, and I would just like you to have it. Just a little something from me to you, Mr. Flair, and it really is my pleasure. Go ahead, open it. Just like Christmas.
Expect him to open it?
Of course I expect him to. Go ahead, what, no guts? Go ahead and open it. I know, you see, it's just something that I tried for a long time, and I know, Rick, that you never could have one, and I would like you to have one. Because otherwise it's like Santa Claus. There it is. I'm going to give him the NWA TV belt because you wouldn't get it no other way.
I've got a half-past that baby of mine would let me in. Moving all over. Rocking on the...
See, I'm one guy that's just getting a little sick and tired of looking for the mad dog. I've been watching people, talking about me, talking about the mad dog, saying there's a couple of crazy people around. I ain't crazy. I ain't go around eating right because I don't have to prove nothing like that. I seen them jumping in creeks. I've been looking all around for the mad dog, but I can't find me no mad dog. You see, I want the mad dog because I got a little present for him. Supposed to be tough in Atlanta, going around telling all the things he can do. Well, I've got something for you to do. I've got me here a 12-foot truck pulling chain. Ain't afraid of nothing. I got me some straps, dog collars. Went down to the pit bull factory, got them made up myself. What we're going to do, you see, Sawyer, is we're going to put these dog collars around our necks. Gotta have a good, strong, solid neck for that because someone's going to get their neck busted in this. This is the most dangerous match ever came up in the history of wrestling, you see, and I ain't one to fool. You think you can hurt me. You're trying to impress people by drinking eggs, by busting the glass. You see, when I bust glass, I do a right job. You see, I've been in bar rooms myself. I don't drink, but I've been in bar rooms. You see the movies, John Wayne, big time, taking bars and boom, bashing bottles over people's heads, and down they go. You think you can hurt me, Sawyer? Just check it out for 1 second. What do you think you can do to me? You call yourself the Mad Dog. Mister, I'm coming to fight. Buzz Sawyer, rest in peace. I'm coming to do something about it. By the time I'm finished with you, Sawyer, this is exactly what you'll look like. Here is the Mad Dog, Buzz Sawyer. We'll see you very, very soon.